As someone that's been running D&D games for as long as I have, you can assume, and probably assume correctly, that I like to tell stories. So in this kind of new impromptu series where I sit down in front of the camera and just talk, I wanted to kind of go over different topics in regards to myself and my players, in regards to just things that I've experienced over the years. And today I kind of wanted to go over my chaotic workflow in preparing for my Friday night games. And in a previous video, I talked about how I have a really hard time, like, reading through something and absorbing what I've read and then utilizing it, which is very important whenever it comes to D&D, especially if you run modules and stuff. Most of my campaigns for the last 8 years or so have all been homebrew. Even down to monsters and things, and that is for that reason, because I have a hard time absorbing written content for specifically 5th edition D&D. When I was starting to DM years and years ago, this was the first module that I ever bought. It was the Red Hand of Doom, and it's became kind of a running joke because we kind of played through it once many years ago, and we kind of finished it, we kind of glossed over a lot of things, and when I say we, I mean me, as the DM. I have tried to read this book so many times, and I have the basic story, especially now since I've watched other groups run it, but at the time, it was very chaotic how I ran through this thing. There's a point kind of in the beginning that was easy enough. I read through it and grasped enough of it to kind of like get them to Drellin's Ferry, and from there though, whenever the orcs and things, whenever the hobgoblins, when the armies come, and like from that point, I would just take the story in whatever direction that my mind kind of came up with. And we would never, and it's like I said, it's a running gag because we play this kind of once a year. When we get together, have like an all-day session, and we'll see how far we can get into it. And every year it's different. Every year I end up just trying to sit down at my computer and read this and write notes, and I change it. I stop reading and I start just writing kind of what I want, because unfortunately that is the only way that I can retain that knowledge and kind of run it easily and effortlessly on game day. And that's kind of spilled over into my current campaigns. And if you go back to whenever, because I run games for a channel called Whiskey Dice that started as a podcast, and now we stream it and record it with video. We did 2 kind of precursor campaigns to this, both of them very short format. With the way that my mind is always kind of racing through things, I will expedite plot very quickly. So I think that I'm pretty decent at getting a story across in between, 1 to 15 sessions, maybe 1 to 10 even, or 1 to 8. I'm tackling something now where I've tried to plan out a campaign over the course of 1 to 2 years, and it's been difficult. And I kind of, like I said, I wanted to get into my chaotic weekly workflow for this. And it all kind of starts Monday mornings. Like, I will jump in the truck, and my job gives me a lot of ability to kind of be by myself, listen to music, and just as I'm working, think. And that's what I do. I will get in my truck, throw my headphones in, throw on some tabletop RPG music, or other game music, that I use for my sessions, and I will start to literally test out voices for my NPCs and have conversations as if my players were there, as if I'm playing through the session, and I will try to go through different avenues of kind of like what they're heading toward, and like be like, okay, if they do this, then I would, do things this way or the opposite. And I am that crazy person that is talking in gnome voice, or dwarf voice with the windows cracked at a stoplight, and people do sometimes look at me crazy. Or whenever I'm in my stores servicing them, and I'm merchandising things, people will walk by me and give me the craziest looks when I'm just talking to myself, because I do look like a crazy person. And I do all this because if I was to sit down or even plan ahead more than a week, Like, if I was to sit down and try and write my notes on Monday, like, I would probably rewrite them on Tuesday. And then I would have to go back and rewrite them on Wednesday. And then probably end up rewriting them the day of, Friday morning, like, after work. And I even do that now. Sometimes I'll be so gung-ho in what I want to do that I'll be like, oh, this is locked in. Like, I'm going to sit down and write all this now. And I'll do it maybe Sunday nights, 2 days after the session. And always, without fail, I'll end up rewriting all of it Thursday night or Friday morning. And it's just kind of the way that my mind works. And it's unfortunate. It's a little bit of a obsessive, compulsive kind of thing. And it's not just in D&D. I will change layouts of rooms in the house. I will move things around. Our setup for recording, I've changed 100 times. I've changed the overlays that we use to record our games, like the artistic style of it, because I'll just look at it and like it one day and hate it the next. My D&D notes are the same way. And it's one of those things that I think is interesting to talk about because, you know, in this age of so many actual play podcasts and things out there, you know, when I cut my teeth on this years and years ago, I didn't like the idea of homebrew and stuff at the time. I thought modules and things were the only way to go, which is bad because, as I said, I don't read so good. But it was a friend of mine, Ian, that actually started homebrewing his own world, and we played some games in it to where I finally came around to it doesn't have to be the rule set that has been given to us by wizards that we don't have to run by that. We can kind of do our own thing. We can tailor make our games and our sessions to whatever we want, and that's the magic of this game. I kind of owe my success in running games for my friends and for them allowing me to be the DM for so long just by my improvisational skills. And honest to God, like the way that I learned how to play 5th edition was by watching shows like Critical Role and things at the time when they transitioned over and started streaming their games and like Campaign 1 and they were switching to 5th edition. I kind of learned how to run the game alongside them just by watching, and I have all the 5e books. I have a lot of 3.5 books and a ton of AD&D books. To be honest, I haven't read very many of them. I've flipped through the monster manuals and like Kobold Press's books for monsters and creatures a lot more than I have any of the other books to try and get a grasp on rules and things like that, or to understand the different classes and things. I literally leave my players, as long as they understand how their class works, you know, I'm down to say, oh, okay, cool, awesome. I'm glad to know that that's how that works, and I will take them at their word, even if it's wrong, because honestly, I don't care. If everyone around me is having fun, I don't mind breaking the rules and things, just because I know I'm very chaotic in the way that I run my games. And because of the way my mind bounces around, I have a hard time sticking to plot points. I've rewritten the history for this current campaign 3 or 4 times, and I keep throwing my players through loops, and I honestly feel bad for them. And that's part of the reason why I've had such a hard time running a cohesive long-form campaign, because it all comes very, at times, railroady and linear. And that's what I'm trying to change with this current campaign, even though I will honestly say that the first 12 to 14 sessions have been very much a prelude that have kind of gotten them up to the point of understanding the whole plot of this crazy narrative that I'm trying to tell. But now I'm just kind of like letting them jump out into the world and do their thing, and that is like terrifying to me. Because the way that my mind works, I like to have things at least thought out in my mind, you know, ahead of time. And then, like I said, whenever I have a hard time writing things, you know, way before and prepping, and then it not being fresh in my mind the day of, I think the quality of my sessions do go down. But it's something that I'm having to kind of teach myself. And the reason I bring all this up is because, like I said, I get bummed out at times if the quality of my game kind of falters. And at times I've taken my games way too seriously. I've taken my players too seriously, and I've sparked arguments with them over silly things like, hey, you forgot this part of your backstory. Like, your character wouldn't RP with these NPCs that way. You know them, or X, Y, and Z. And it's led to some pretty uncomfortable moments at the table. Thankfully, we're family, and we can fight like brothers and sisters and get over it in a day. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because I want to say, Like, to you and your games at your table, it doesn't have to be some kind of majestic cinematic masterpiece where you're so tied up in RP the whole time and it's like watching a movie or something. It doesn't have to be that. These games, even if you are recording them for the world to see, they just have to, just show yourself. Like, do it the way that you like, even if it is of less quality than the big dogs on the block. Because all that matters with this game is that you're having fun. Because I truly do think that this is a game that has made people better, that has left people better off than when they found it. It is a game that teaches so many life skills and things that I just think, for me personally, it's helped me evolve as a person. Like I said in my previous video, it led me to the person that I fell in love with. And it's given me more time with my kids when I run games for them. And it's given me friends that I hope that will stick around with me forever and continue to play these games with me. And to kind of like cap this off and to give you a peek into my notes now, it's literally a day of, after a whole week of at times writing things down, writing 10 pages of whatever, it usually always comes down to a page full of some dialogue and some bullet points. And you will watch me, if you watch any of my games, I will start RPing dialogue that I've written and I will just look up and improv it. Because I have such a hard time going along even with the things that I write, which is crazy. It's like I have a hard time reading things that other people have written, and at times I have a hard time reading what I've written. And if you get me started on encounters and creatures and monsters, in my games, those things are very fluid, I would say. I kind of tailor the HP thresholds of like big boss creatures and those encounters in 3 different ways. I will sit down and I will have, HP 1, 2, and 3 based on how my party kind of acclimates to that encounter. And this is probably not a popular thing to like bring up to anyone. I think a lot of people like to have everything, as is, ready to go, and they go on, like this is the stat block, this is the AC, this is the HP and that. A lot of the times I will tailor these encounters, on the fly, and my players have never, argued against this. And we run our games fast and loose, and we bend and break rules all the time, but there's also that understanding that when things get serious, we kind of all lock down. And that's what's led to some epic player moments and even the losing of NPCs in the past. It's just one of those things that I'm saying, if your players trust you, you can kind of get away with a lot of things because you all, enjoy each other's company. And like I said, in this kind of series where I'm just sitting here talking to you guys, I just want to emphasize the fact that if you can find those friends, those friends that become family, and you can get a game of D&D going, I really think that it has improved my life, and it could probably improve yours. And if you've never played this game, give it a try. Even if it's just you and one friend sitting across from each other at a table, running a game of D&D.